So this week on the show, we are talking about A Quiet Place, directed by Mr. John Krasinski, starring John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, as well as some very talented children.
Yeah, I had their names here. Millicent, I can't, hang on. Millicent something, who actually is deaf.
Yeah.
And what was the other boy? What was the boy's name? It was Noah Jupe. That's it. Millicent Simmons. That was her name.
So I'll go ahead and tell this movie came out in 2018, but there's a sequel coming out. So I will go ahead and warn people that there will be spoilers in this episode. If you missed it when it came out and you want to see it before the sequel, there will be spoilers here. So this movie,
please join us on the rewatch though. If you've seen it before, you're excited, you want to talk about it.
Yeah, go ahead and download the podcast and just hang on to it. I do that all the time. So this is not Krasinski's first time directing a movie, but it is his first foray into horror. He's obviously most well known for playing Jim on The Office. So very funny guy. We know he's very funny. But now he's like an action star with his Jack Ryan show. Yep. He's a very talented man.
He is. He's having a sorry, I'm kind of eating dinner here at the same time. He's having a bit of a
you know what? Everything's off the rails. It's fine.
He's having a bit of a career renaissance. Not really a career renaissance. Just a good second half, I would say.
He's finding a good second half. A lot of actors, when they're on long-running successful TV shows, have a hard time breaking out of that. And he's found a good place behind the camera, as well as, a role on a new streaming show, and he seems to be doing all right. So this movie is a post-apocalyptic film about aliens. We really don't know because the movie doesn't give us backstory. It just kind of throws us into the world and we are left with our own devices. But some kind of creature, alien, monster, kaiju, I don't know, has kind of taken over the planet. And the only way to avoid them is to be super quiet because they have very sensitive hearing. So that's how they find you. They hear you. They don't necessarily see you or smell you or anything. It appears to only be hearing.
They don't really seem to have sight or smell. We can assume they have taste.
So
we can assume that they can feel things. But other than that, it's a really interesting premise for a film.
It is. And this movie is about a family of, again, spoiler alert, a family of 5 that very quickly becomes a family of 4 trying to survive. I totally lost my train of thought for a second. So have we all seen this?
You were thinking about what that meant, weren't you?
Yeah.
Becoming a family of 4.
Had anyone not seen this?
I hadn't seen it.
You hadn't seen it. Well, then why don't you start and tell us some of your thoughts? Fans of the show will know that David's not a horror guy.
No.
So you tend to just avoid these movies by default. So what did you think?
Yeah, and I feel like the horror tag is kind of it isn't the best label here because while it is scary and it would be a very tense situation, I feel like it's just as much a creature film or a monster film, however you want to word it, as anything else. It's an interesting family film about a very difficult time. I thought this movie was great. I thought that it was so subtle in a lot of its storytelling because it does deprive itself of dialogue. It does deprive, and so there's a lot that you pick up on just through body language, and a lot you pick up on just through the cues that you can pick up on in the scenery and on the set. So I think it's a really smart movie. I think I'm going to say something. I think this is one of the best creature movies since Alien. I really found it to be, and that's one that could be considered a horror movie too, horror, sci-fi, whatever you want to say. It was tense and it was scary, but I also really cared about this family. And I feel like they made a smart move because there were times where the opening stuff that you saw them in the store and the rocket ship and the boy, that was all going to be like peppered in as flashback. But I think opening that way put you right into the world, put you right into the tone. It set the stakes very high right away, so you're ingratiated into this whole world. You don't even need to have it explained to you what the story is about, because I kind of had an idea of what it was about, but man, I was just immediately taken in within the first, I don't know, before the title card, even happens. So I thought it was great. Performances were really good. I appreciated that they did use subtitles throughout the movie. At first, I was making sure that I didn't have subtitles switched on.
Yeah.
Because I was like, if this was meant, if it anyway, but it helps you fill in a little bit of the gaps. I think that the visual effects are actually really good. I watched the behind the scenes where Krasinski talked about not really having experience with visual effects, and Industrial Light and Magic came in, and they did their work. They were heavily involved from being involved in the actual shoot, so they could say, hey, here's what we can do here, here's how you're going to want to shoot that if that's what you want. Krasinski had a lot of input on the design of the monster, which he seemed to be really fascinated by. So yeah, every aspect of this film I feel like works. It's good. I can see why they greenlit a sequel.
Yeah, I agree. What did you think, Andrew?
I honestly was very surprised at how much I loved it. Like, and I'm right there with David on two things. Number one, I am not a horror guy. I don't like watching horror movies because mainly it's because of the blood and the guts. It's because of the blood and gore. Like I feel like most horror movies, at least up until like the late 2010s, were kind of reliant on that. They were reliant on that. It's a horror film. It's going to be rated R. Let's put as much blood as we can in it. This doesn't need that, the scare factor lies in not knowing. And you don't know the origin of the story. You don't know what these things are. You don't know what's happening. You don't know how these things are going to get you. We just know that these things listen to you, and that's how they track you, and that's how they know where they are. So they're using a different sense of, it's like a different sense of perception. But the performances are fantastic. Um, for a horror film, John Krasinski knows what he's doing. I'll give him that. And and it's such a fantastic film. Like for 90 minutes, because that's how long the movie is. For 90 minutes, man, it doesn't let up. It really, and especially in those last 40 minutes, like those last 40 minutes could be a movie all unto itself. But no, this was an A+ effort.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really breezy 90 minutes. It doesn't feel, it doesn't even feel that long.
No.
It's kind of over before you know it. And at least that's how I felt. And I think that's credit to Krasinski's directing and his writing to get that pacing in there right. I don't disagree with anything either of you two said. I really think that that the writing in particular should be kind of applauded, because there's, for a 90-minute movie, there's not a lot of dialogue in it, but the movie always makes sense. At least the core story. Sure, people could say, well, I don't know where the aliens came from, so that didn't make sense, but that's not what the purpose of the movie was. The purpose was to show you this family story of how they are surviving and how they have prepared to welcome a new child, and how they've really just created a world for them to live in. There's really subtle things. Well, subtle in the sense of it's not blatantly pointed out, but it's kind of obvious when you watch it. like they have lined the their like most traveled walkway with sand, so that it's very quiet when they walk on it. They've outfitted their home with this like color changing light system to
warn each other,
to warn each other if someone is out, and can see it from a mile away or something. So it's just written very well, and I think it's difficult to tell a story that cohesive without much dialogue and in such a short amount of time. I think it was overall a very good movie.
Whoa.
Hey.
A Quiet Place the whole time I was. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Garrett.
So now, what did Garrett think of the movie?
I agree with everything.
I have your comments here. I was going to read them.
No, read them. Read for me, David. Because it's. I mean, I already said it.
Yeah, Garrett. See if you agree with what you said earlier. You said A Quiet Place was the best monster movie since Cloverfield.
I do.
I said it was the best creature film since Alien. So, I went up to you in terms of bold statements.
Yeah.
Garrett, I want you to talk about, though, because you mentioned you talked about how you don't know what's going on, and we talked about that in the past with the Cloverfield movies and with like 10 Cloverfield Lane, and I kind of feel like it fits in with that. So do you think that's the best way to go with a movie like this?
So I think that this movie, and I think I heard while sitting in the chat, heard some opinions, and I think that the storytelling has to be so well done because you're not talking a lot, and you have to make me care about these people. And what better way than a movie of silence to build that tension and then to take the youngest member of a family away instantly before you even know what the monster is, though. You're already tense because everybody's doing so. First the kid scurries by and you think, what is that creepy little thing? And then
it's a human,
because you don't know. And so it's just like, is this an evil kid? Like, I don't know what's going on yet.
Right.
And then it kind of builds and everybody's just being quiet. They're so tense as they move the tiniest thing, and you still have no idea why. But you feel it because it is just so quiet. I remember sitting in the theater and people were rustling their food and it just echoed throughout the whole. And I remember thinking, I've never felt this in a movie because I've never been in a movie where it's been this quiet. And I think that also gives you a sense of uncomfortable on top of everything the movie's already giving you. And then, bang, you all of a sudden hear the one loud noise and your soul drops and you see Krasinski just take off and then gone. And that's how it starts. And then it's just A Quiet Place. It's like, oh God, what are we in for? They just killed a child in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's like the Up of horror movies, where that first 10 minutes gets you.
Yeah. But then it just builds from there. You see that she's pregnant and just, why are you pregnant in this post-apocalyptic world? That seems like a poor decision,
y'all. I'll tell you what.
Right. It's a poor decision.
I'll tell you what. I'm the only one who can speak to this.
But
being a new father and seeing the child as it was born and very upset and looking at what all they needed to do, because the whole point is you got to be quiet and you having a baby, and you know what babies don't do? Anything you tell them. So
they're famously not quiet when they're born.
Right.
So like they were putting the baby like in its little like special thing, and they're putting like a little oxygen mask on it and stuff. I was like, I started to like well up thinking about putting Jackson in such a contraption. So I was just kind of like, oh God.
Yeah. Well, and I'm
gonna lose it if something happens to this baby.
Yeah, I would never take away anybody's like want to have a child, but like maybe in that particular situation, consider the surroundings, and maybe it's not the best idea to bring a child into this particular world right now where we have to be quiet or we die. Like maybe that's the line. Like a post-apocalyptic world, like you can have a baby in a zombie apocalypse. Maybe not when these things operate and kill on sound.
It's a bad idea, but we talked about this when we talked about 10 Cloverfield Lane, right? The best what if stories, like what if aliens showed up that wanted to kill you, but they tracked you by sound, right? You have to introduce the worst case scenario into the what if, because that's how you really build the tension of like, well, what if you couldn't make a sound and you had all your stuff together, but you were also pregnant and about to have a baby?
Well, and that's why I think this one is, you could have done it a little
so well.
You could have done it differently where, I don't know, she was already pregnant, but to get pregnant afterwards seemed like a poor decision.
Well, I mean, these people, they're going out very quietly trying to shop. You don't necessarily pick up everything you need on that trip.
Well, like, I do want to say one thing about the detail of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice, one of the things I keep seeing about this is that there's a shot of like a vending machine where they're trying to get something out of the vending machine, and you see all the chips are there. Like, you have to be so quiet that you can't eat chips, and that's hard because I know that if I ate chips, I would go in the first 5 minutes because I love my chips. So,
oh man, it would just be, we needed like a little animated short of Andrew, like in the quiet place scenario, and just everybody's all being quiet, and just Andrew in the corner goes, shh, with the chips.
you would die for chips.
What?
Just listen, I loves my Doritos. I will eat my Doritos.
Is that the
Cool Ranch?
If it means saving other people, I will eat those Doritos. And now
nobody was saved.
I know where you're coming from, Andrew. I know where you come from. I'd get us all killed for a bag of Funyuns.
Now that's a crunchy chip.
These are friends I don't want anymore.
Spicy nacho Doritos, gimme. So, no, I will die for Doritos.
Oh man, I wouldn't be able to resist not being able to open a can of soda. You'd have to find unique ways to eat.
You guys would have to go eat at the waterfall every dang day.
Oh man, I was sitting there wondering, like, man, they should have really taken this knowledge and established their camp at the waterfall.
Yeah, that seems like a smart thing.
Constructed their own waterfall-like creation that constantly is emanating noise. But I think they were looking into that, because he had this whole thing about like, he had these like strengths and weaknesses that he was trying to lay out, and he was like sound weapon, sound armor, something they could come up with.
I will say that that's one thing that I just picked at just minorly while I was watching it, is like, if they are attracted to sound, wouldn't they all just be by the loud sounds, or do they just realize, okay, this is water, I don't need to deal with this?
They're probably smart enough to realize that, I would think.
Yeah, I think they've probably come to the conclusion like, well, this is a constant source of noise, and I can't discern any other noise here.
That's
so,
true.
Like, if anything is smart enough to live here, congratulations. I can't hear you. It's possible that they do occasionally stop by the waterfall and like try to hear new things, or stop by the river. But I think mostly they just hang out and they just wait.
Why not? Why not at least plan? These things can't always be planned.
Mm-hmm.
But if they had set up because I can understand why they don't want to live at the waterfall. They can't have a house there. They have a fully constructed house where they're at, and they're probably not capable of building a house.
Be too loud.
But why not try to build like a secondary camp at the waterfall, really just so that Emily Blunt could have the baby there?
That's probably where they should have had the baby, and instead of super soundproofing a room. Right?
Like, at least try to be like, okay, let's try to get you there.
Yeah, it would be tough though. I mean, they'd have to carry her. I mean,
well, and that's why they would need a camp there so that she could be like, okay, I'm just going to stay here for a few days until this baby comes out.
Yeah, and then, of course, pursuing on that, what worst case scenario thing, this movie builds. Krasinski as a director does a great job of building the tension. I won't go into super detail, but the nail, You just set up, it's there, expectation, it's there, you're waiting on it. And I gotta be honest, every time somebody went down a flight of stairs, I was thinking, oh God, it's a nail again. And then they had this safe room and it was perfect. They had this quiet place. And worst possible thing happens, it gets flooded. And it's like, oh, well, I always sat there and thought was, that was a lot of work. Oh, that was like a year of work.
Yeah.
And for like 4 hours.
Yeah. It gets flooded
of safety
when the baby is born.
Yes.
So this baby is just floating in this horrible soundproof box contraption.
David, you said this is the first time you've seen it, right?
Yes, this was.
And Andrew, was this the first time you'd seen it?
No.
Okay. So I was in a constant anxiety attack knowing what was going to happen. But I think the interesting part of this movie is I think a lot of people went and saw it. A lot of people were blown away by it. And then a lot of people never saw it again. And so even though I know what was coming through this whole thing, I didn't remember like when or what exactly. And so even through all of that, I was still just a ball of tension. And I just am not excited about how they can one-up it in this one. Because I know based on the trailers, I'm already going to feel anxious, but I'm already prepared mentally to go in thinking, oh my God, I just need like a support pillow to hide behind, to just get rid of the anxiety. Not because it's like the regular fear. It's more of that just slow under your skin. I have no idea anything can happen because again, a sound is, and I think that really makes a big difference, is a sound and then it's over. And that's terrifying because the sound can happen from anywhere at any point in time. You don't have to see it for it to happen. No. Oh, you're muted, David.
Sorry. And I was saying these things are fast, man. I mean, it's like one sound and they're there. So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how the second one goes because of the way this one ends. And I won't go so far as to completely spoil the ending of this one, but it'll be interesting to see how this one, how the sequel will go based on what they learn by the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. And I'm interested. The trailer looks cool. The trailer looks like it's going to show us a little bit more before. This movie starts 89 days into the event before jumping to, I think, like like a year later, and then a few months after that. So I liked that aspect of it, that you're starting sort of in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And it'll be interesting to see what it was, what day one was.
It will be. I kind of hope. I don't think I want a detailed answer on what these things are. I'm very interested in seeing kind of first contact, I guess I'll call it, mm-hmm. How that goes. But I still don't feel like I need to know everything about them.
Right.
But what was fascinating to me is I did like those time markers, because 89 days into the event is really just, that's right about 3 months, and everything's overrun. It's amazing how quickly it appears that society falls.
Yeah,
because of these creatures. Man. And so it'll be really interesting to see what we find out about that. I don't think I caught this if it was mentioned. Was it ever mentioned what area of the country they're in?
I don't think so.
I know it was shot in, well, the people that kind of had the spec script were from Iowa, so they were kind of like cornfieldy in setting, so maybe somewhere in the Midwest. I think that's kind of the generality of it, that and I think that goes back to the origin of the monsters and the concern. The closest thing I can compare this to again is Cloverfield, and look what happened to Cloverfield Paradox, where they tried to give you that origin story, and it was the least well received of all of them. I think for something like this, I agree that it would be certainly better, but I think that you just give me enough. Like, let me see them come in. Yeah. First contact, chaos, craziness. Let me live in that world, because that's what I want from this. I want to feel like I'm there.
You can still have a lot of that mystery and a lot of that mystique about these creatures, because all we need is chaos. Like, and everybody kind of, it'll be interesting to see the wheels tick for people as they figure out, like, oh, these things aren't just attacking randomly. They're attacking the loudest thing they can find, so that it'd be interesting. I'm really looking forward to A Quiet Place too. More so now that I've seen this.
Since you all mentioned Cloverfield, one of the things I keep hearing about, one of the things I saw a little bit on the internet, is that there's this wild fan theory that this movie, A Quiet Place, ties into Cloverfield.
Yeah, that theory has existed.
And I don't know how you all feel about that.
It doesn't.
I think I'm not a big fan of it. I can kind of see what they're talking about, but I personally don't agree with it.
I think we know now that it's not. I think that was addressed at some point, but prior to A Quiet Place coming out, there was a lot of speculation because that's kind of how the Cloverfield franchise was being run at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was speculation that it was a secret Cloverfield movie and you would find out when it came out. Kind of like, I want to say that 10 Cloverfield Lane was announced like 10 days before it came out or something ridiculous. So there was suspense around those releases. So, and the plot of A Quiet Place was relatively kept under wraps, but we knew enough to be like, it could be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad it ended up not being, just because I like having this extra universe. But yeah, it was a fun theory.
David, you're muted again.
I agree. I preferred to stay out, but if it had been, I wouldn't have been disappointed necessarily. I mean, if you really look at it too, the creatures aren't wholly unlike the weird creatures we see at the end of 10 Cloverfield Lane, which you could argue is a very similar scenario of these people out in the middle of nowhere. John Goodman's character survives by being deep underground where the sound might not be as big of a thing. We even see signs that say, or newspapers that say, get underground. What are these things? So like, I understand that there's an element of like, oh, it could be. And there's this idea that, after the Cloverfield monster came, all these different alien creatures started spawning around. But I think they've already debunked it. So as fun as an idea as it is, let's just let it be its own thing and enjoy it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Have we talked about Millicent Simmons and her performance?
We mentioned her a little bit, but we could talk more about
I just
her performance, which is good.
Watched some of the special features, and I had heard Krasinski talk about this before, is that it was really important to him to cast an actress who is deaf in that role. And so some of the interesting things that they did to kind of show how she acted and interacted and took notes, they were like, she'd have to look at her interpreter, but would look at the director, just kind of glance in order to get the tone from seeing how he was visually speaking, but like look at the interpreter to get the translation. So it was just a really interesting look at how important, that representation was, which is really nice to see that was incorporated into something like this. The brother had to learn sign language, and they picked it up and became really good friends, and just a lot of people really took time to put as much detail into that. And I thought that was a nice, little tidbit to go into this type of movie.
It adds real authenticity to a character like that when you cast someone who lives that disability, who has that problem. And so like, I hope that something like that encourages more directors to take that chance of casting, somebody who's actually suffers from this, as opposed to casting a name actor and, handicapping them for the film.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the box office stuff.
Yeah. I'll run through this real quick. So A Quiet Place 2, this debuted back in April of 2018, the weekend of April 6th. And it finished number 1. I don't have numbers for this, but it's pretty good as far as a wide release film goes for a director. Debuted at $50 million in that number 1 spot, knocking off Ready Player One, which was in its second week. It brought in 24 million. Blockers, starring John Cena, brought in 20 million.
Great movie.
At number 30. Do you actually like that movie, Josh?
No, I genuinely think Blockers is hilarious.
There you go. In number 4, in its 8th week, you had Black Panther, which brought in 8.7. And at number 5, I don't remember this movie. It's a movie called Acrimony, which was in its second week, brought in $8.3 million. Quiet Place would go on to make $188 million in the United States, $152 million overseas for a pretty even split, giving it a worldwide total of $340 million worldwide. At the end of the year, Quiet Place would actually finish in the number 16 spot domestically, right behind Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Number 1 for that year was Black Panther at $700 million, which is huge. And Avengers Infinity War with $678 million. The Incredibles 2, which brought in $608 million. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which brought in $417 million. And Aquaman at the number 5 spot, $335. Big year for your superheroes.
Yeah.
A Quiet Place 2, if I'm looking at this correctly, which I like to think I am, is the highest grossing movie that year that's not based on something else.
I think I remember that.
Nice.
That's good.
Which, and it's got Crazy Rich Asians, which I think is based on a book right behind it. The highest grossing non-sequel of any kind is Bohemian Rhapsody that year. And then I was going to say A Star Is Born, but that was a remake. So
Right.
And then that's the numbers don't change too much worldwide. A Quiet Place finished in the number 32 spot worldwide, in a very big year that saw Infinity War break all types of records. So that's it for the box office stats this week. I'll throw it to the letterbox game, which I don't remember who's running.
Oh no,
I don't either. I was hoping you were keeping your records.
I do. I have my record. Let me open it.
I think part of me feels like it's me.
It's Garrett's turn.
Okay,
well then I had a feeling too.
After I didn't. Yeah. Well, I've got it pulled up. So.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Who wants to go?
I will say it's a 3.7.
3.7 for David. Who next?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, you want to play this game?
Yes, I am.
You want to play this game?
Just watch him play.
I think Andrew is losing, so I feel like third place might be better to go because you get an option, but then somebody gets it exactly right. Who knows? I'm
gonna go a couple notches lower and say 3.5.
3.5 for Josh. Andrew has the pick of the litter now.
So, David, what did you have?
3.7.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 3.8.
3.8. And for the record, I picked a 3.6 before I knew I was going to be here. So we all picked right after one another. How about that? Well, so somebody did get it exactly correct. This movie has just over 1,000 fans, people that put it in there.
Ooh, in their top 4?
Top 4. Yep.
Ooh, yeah.
400,000 plus reviews with an average of 3.7, which means David takes it down.
Big win for me this week. I'm the letterbox king, as you all know. Follow me. If you're watching this, follow me on Letterbox. You won't regret it.
Yeah. Only until they get those hats back in stock, and it's over for you because I'm gonna buy one.
Yeah, we'll see.
One of my favorite reviews right here, it goes back to what we were talking about, and it just says, maybe go live by the Hoover Dam or something. Jeez.
Oh, yes. Great idea.
Man, what a trip that would be, though. How you going to get there? You got to walk there.
That's true.
Yeah.
What are Niagara Falls? I don't know.
Yeah. They don't even wear no shoes or nothing, Jesus. They just walking around. And I'm thinking, okay, look, shoes aren't that loud. Like, it's, just be quiet. Okay. So that brings me up to 3 letterbox wins on the year. Josh and Andrew are tied at 2, and Garrett's in the lead with 4.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say it was last.
What is happening? What is happening?
I saved it. Garrett's winning the letterbox game, so it's been a weird 2021.
It's rigged.
So I'm not sure what our next film will be. I think Quiet Place 2, probably.
You'll find out if you subscribe to the show in your
Mhm.
favorite podcast app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and whatever other more obscure one you might use after those. And
Mhm.
then, of course, our YouTube channel. If you're watching, if you've discovered us through YouTube's recommended video feature, you should subscribe, especially if you made it this far. You clearly liked it. You wouldn't watch all this if you didn't. That would be really weird.
Yeah.
If you did and you don't like it, don't subscribe because I.
Well, yeah, tell us
make me
why though.
uncomfortable.
Tell us why in the
Yeah,
comments
tell us
because we
why.
have to know what we did so bad.
Yeah. What did we do that made you watch?
Is it Garrett showing up a third of the way through?
Yeah, did that freak you out? I could get that. Anyway,
I'm gonna
Kramer.
try not to fall asleep.
yeah. Subscribe on YouTube and in your favorite podcasting app. And that is the best place for you to find out what our next episode will be when we drop it on Mondays. And then, of course, social media, everybody's favorite activity these days. Instagram is the best place to go. And then we're also on Facebook, Letterboxd, and Twitter.
And TikTok.
And TikTok.
And we're
Kind
killing
of.
it on TikTok lately.
We are killing it. We're killing it on the TikToks and the Reels.
Regular content. You can find it on TikTok.
Yes, regular content. At So Many Sequels or at So Many Sequels Pod, depending on the platform of your choice. So go find us there. We'll be back next time with another. Andrew's raised his hand. What do you have?
We didn't rate it ourselves.
Mother F.
5 stars. No questions.
give
I
our
don't know
rating.
why I always forget that part. And Andrew
for it.
remembers that part.
So 5 stars right here. I will give
Five
it
from Andrew. Yeah, it's a full 5 stars from me. Like this
Well,
was
then I won't-
ideal.
I won't be the combo breaker. I'm not even going to think about it. I'll just say 5 stars.
5
I
stars
hadn't
is
thought about it
perfect.
at all. But as
There's
far
no
as
reason to think about it.
as far as post-apocalyptic horror movies with monsters, I don't have any notes. It's pretty dang good.
If
Yeah,
the only
perfectly
quip I
executed.
have is go live by the water,
Yeah.
you did a good job.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. The only thing I feel like you can really critique is their lifestyle.
Is
And that's not
questioning
the
their
movie's fault.
decision making,
Right.
but it's a horror movie.
That's what
So
you're
that's
supposed
all
to do.
you do anyway.
Yes,
It's a
if you're
perfectly
not
executed
yelling,
horror movie.
if you're not yelling at the characters, the movie went wrong somewhere. You're supposed to.
Yeah.
be mad at
You're
them.
invested.
So
Alright.
go watch A Quiet Place. If you haven't seen it yet, sorry for spoiling it. But watch it again and then go check out the movie when it comes out. I won't say details because I'll probably get them wrong, but I know that this movie is going out in theaters and then it will be on Paramount Plus shortly after, but I don't remember the window. But those are your options. We'll be back next
Cool.
time.
All right. Bye.
King out.